Hi, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to create something called the Locator rig. So this will allow you to animate the constrain objects. So by default, if you're going to constrain your object to something, you have to choose if you'll be using the constraint driving the attributes of this constrained object, or you'll have to use the animation, but you cannot use both at the same time. So there is a very simple way to avoid this problem, and you can do that by creating an additional object that you'll constrain, and later you can parent your object that you want to animate to this constrained object. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a locator. So I'm going to under create menu, and I'm going to pick the locator. So for you guys that don't know what the locator is, it's an object in Maya that has and that won't render. It don't have the display node or the shape node like a regular object, but it has the translation, rotation, and scale, so it has all of the transform information, so you can place it in the scene and rotate it. But it's like a helper object that you can use to parent some stuff, or you can parent it to some joints in the character, or constrain it to, use the motion trails on that later on if tracking arcs while animating or something. So I'm going to move that somewhere in here, let's say underneath this yellow cube that we have. So I have some animation on this red cube already, so it's like moving forward and going back again. So if I would like this object to follow the animation of this red cube, but also animate in its own way, I cannot do that by only using one object. So I have to use some other object in the hierarchy in order to drive the motion. So I'm going to use this locator to do that. So it will be, let's say we can call that constrain driven object. Right, so this object will be driven by our constraint, and we can parent our cube to this object, so we will be able to animate it freely. So if you'll be animating a character with a ball in its hand, and he will be kind of throwing that ball in the air and catching it back and adjusting the grip on the ball, then you can do that in the same way. So let's say if he'll be having the ball in his hand and kind of playing around with it and moving the ball between his fingers or something like that, you can use this setup to constrain the ball to a character's hand, and then you'll be able to freely animate the ball and it will still follow the movement of the hand. So to do that, I'm going to constrain this locator to our red cube that has the animation on it. So to do that, I'm selecting the red cube first, and then shift selecting the locator object. So you'll see the object that you'll be constraining will be here in the channel box. Right, so I'm going under constrain. So by the way, I have the animation tab selected in here. So we have all the animation options and animation tools in the menu. And I'm going to select constrain parent, and I'm going to click on the option box to bring the options for this tool. So I have the maintain offset on, and by default I think it's turned off, so you need to turn it on. The other way, it will just simply pop this constraint object back to the kind of constraint parent. So we don't want that in this situation. We want this offset to be maintained between those two objects. So I have this maintain offset turned on, and I'm going to press add. So it will add the constraint. And you may tell by having this blue background on the attributes in the channel box. So this is telling you that Maya will use constrain to drive those attributes of this object, basically. So right now, if I'm going to scrub the animation, it will follow with our red cube. So right now, all we have to do is to parent this guy, this yellow cube, to the locator. Alright, so now it will follow the movement exactly. And now, since we don't have any animation or constraint on the yellow cube, we can freely animate it. So we can add some very simple jumping animation or something. So let's say we'll have like 4 frames or 5 frames to jump for this guy, like that. And I'm going to edit the curves really quickly, so it will be bouncing off the ground. So I'm going to set those tangents to linear, and I'm going to convert this guy to weighted tangent and stretch it out a little bit, so he'll kind of stay up in the air a bit longer. And I'm going to select all of that and go to curves, post infinity, and cycle. So we cannot really see that right now, but to see the infinity curve, you need to go to view and select the infinity. So it will kind of loop like that till the infinity now. So we have this animation, and you may see that it follows the constraint. So the constraint follows the object, and still we can freely animate this guy however we want. And that's pretty handy if you'll be creating some more complex animations. And also, if you want to disable that from following object, you can do the thing that you'll regularly do. So you can simply animate it. So I'm going to store this position of the constraint in the keyframe. So I'm going to keyframe the first key, and I'm going to set blend parent to 1, so it will by default follow the red cube. And if we would like to detach that constraint, so this object won't follow the constraint anymore from this frame, I'm going to store this position. So I'm setting the keyframe in frame number 24. So I'm pressing the S key. You may see I have the keyframe set on the locator right now. And in the next frame, I'm going to toggle this blend parent attribute to 0. So it will take the position of this keyframe to position this object instead of using the constraint. And by the way, if you're going to set a keyframe, you'll see the color of the background will change. So the red one is suggesting that you have animation driving those attributes. So Maya will take a look at the animation in here and position the object according to data from the keyframes. And this green background is kind of a red mixed with blue, and it suggests you have both in here. So you have the constraint and the animation. And Maya then, as soon as you'll set the keyframe on this constraint object, will create this blend parent attribute that goes from 0 to 1, that will enable you to switch from animation to constraint driving this object. So if we have this set to 1, the constraint is set to 1, so it will follow the object 100%. But if it's set to 0, it will take the data from the animation. So that's why I've set the keyframe 1 frame before to store this position. And in here I'm just switching this blend parent to 0, so it won't follow the object anymore, right? So hopefully this video have been helpful for you guys, and thanks for watching.